Hey guys, let me go ahead and get things set up and then we'll get started. Okay, 1 second, guys. Need to something here. Crap. Hold on, guys. Let me try to get this set here. It seems, there we go. The Periscope has become increasingly accessible over the update iterations. Alright, so yeah, hi guys. For those of you who have joined me in the past, welcome to yet another of my weekly Periscope sessions. During these Periscope sessions, for those who don't already know, I, as a legally blind person, I take questions, any questions that you guys may have about blindness or vision impairment. And basically all you have to do is write your questions down there in the comments here on Periscope, and I will try to answer them as best I can. Now, I do use speech software on my iPhone to be able to read the comments, so you don't have to worry about that. So feel free just to put your comments, as I say, in the comment section down there, and as I say, I'll try to get to them, and I'll try to answer them as quickly as best I can. Maybe not as quickly as I can, because those of you who already follow me know that I have a tendency to lecture and go on and on. So, I mean, even if there are a few questions.
Robert J. Andrew, were you born partially sighted?
A great question. We're starting out early today. That's awesome. Some weeks we hardly have any questions, and some weeks we don't have any, and other weeks we have a lot. Yeah, thanks for the question, by the way. Yeah, I was born with partially sighted with some vision. It's deteriorated very slightly over the years, but that's just a part of my condition. It's kind of expected of it. Again, it's not been really a drastic change, and so it's been, I've been able to get used to it, well enough. So it's not really shocking or anything. But yeah, I was born with a partial vision. I was born with a condition called Leber's congenital amaurosis, which, as some of you may be able to figure out, is a genetic condition. And basically what it is I have a full complement of retinal cells, but they're not all formed properly. And so this causes not as much light to get into my eyes and causes other problems as well. I also have optic atrophy, which means the optic nerve is shorter and thinner than it should be. And so that causes some eye-brain issues. And I also have a color deficiency, which basically means I see colors in kind of a screwy way. Like, for instance, my black may be blue, my red may be orange, and things like that, right? And I have a thing called Eales disease, which basically means blood vessels grow in my eye and they hemorrhage. And so I had to have that taken care of with laser surgery a while back. But I was born with the Leber's and the optic atrophy and the color deficiency. Eales disease was a later situation, usually not related to Leber's, which is very peculiar. I'm not sure why.
Robert J. Andrew, do you have enough sight to go for a walk?
Not sure why that was an issue. Oh, blind people walk all the time. You may mean, like, go for a walk, like, in terms of leisure. Well, that's kind of a complicated question because, a lot of blind people say if they're walking in a place that they already know really well, if they've memorized how to get from point A to point B, say in their neighborhood or somewhere else, we can walk pretty easily, once we memorize the route. And so even with, no vision, if we've memorized a route ahead of time or learned it ahead of time and know where we're going, I mean, we can walk pretty well anywhere, even for leisure, But, it depends on the level of vision you have and how comfortable you are walking on your own as well. For me, I do have a decent amount of usable vision, still very limited, but for my condition anyway, it's pretty decent level. I still have to, even though I have a decent level, it's still pretty low, and I still have to memorize routes myself before I can walk them confidently. However, GPS technology has really helped the blind in this area. I have a couple of apps, GPS apps, that actually tell me where the intersections are and what they are, and also what other points of interest are around. And so if I feel, adventurous or confident enough, I might walk in an area that I haven't previously memorized in terms of how to get from point A to point B just using the GPS. Now, it depends on how complicated the area is, whether I want to do that or not. But, most of the time I'll memorize an area before I walk it on my own. And, well, also, even if I'm trying to get, if I want to go spontaneously somewhere and I want to go on my own, a lot of times, even if I don't know the area, I'll just ask people that I see around me. I do have, again, some vision, so I might see someone walking by or hear someone walking by and flag them down. Be like, excuse me, do you know where so-and-so is? and they'll either try to give me verbal directions or they'll just walk with me to that place. So again, it's very case dependent. It depends on the location. It depends on what technology I have with me. It depends on how familiar I may be with the area, how adventurous I may be. That's the way it is with most blind and visually impaired people. It really depends on the situation. It depends on the individual too.
At Armstrong 25, what GPS apps do you use the most?
What GPS apps do I use? Probably the general public would not know the names of them if I mentioned them even, but I do use Blind Square, which basically, for folks who don't know, is a combination GPS Foursquare app for blind people. So it uses GPS to tell you the streets and then taps into Foursquare, which is now Swarm, to tell you points of interest. And so you get the intersections and points of interest. So I mainly use Blind Square. I often use it in combination with the Apple Maps app that's built into my iPhone. I also sometimes use, what is the other one? I don't use it enough really to memorize the name that well, but goodness, the other really popular ones. You might know the name off the top. I'm blanking it right now. Goodness, but yeah, I mainly use Blind Square and Apple Maps.
At Robert J. Andrew, what are the worst obstructions for you when out and about?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, it's kind of hard to answer off the top of your head. There are just so many possibilities. I do use a white cane, and so if there's an obstruction in my way, usually my cane's going to pick it up before my feet do, and my knees do, right? So I usually stop on a dime. If I feel something that I didn't expect, that my cane hits, I'll just stop, right there, and make sure I don't fall into it. Because and this is not necessarily all blind people, but I tend to walk really quickly. I know where I'm going. I know what I'm, kind of on a mission. And so I've had to train myself just to stop like on a dime if something unfamiliar pops up. So I don't go fall on my face. Believe it or not, I don't fall on my face that much because I have a decent balance. Balance is controlled mostly by the ears, if you can believe it. So I have a good balance even with limited vision. And so if I trip or whatever, I hardly ever fall. I've never broken a bone in my life, believe it or not. Knock on wood. I don't have wood close to me. Anyway, but obstructions, probably one of the most annoying obstructions, if you want to take that route in terms of the question. Most annoying obstructions, one of them is the wet floor sign. Okay? Because, you know the deal. I think even sighted people sometimes will accidentally run into them, don't notice them. So you have one of those signs that stands up on a wet floor, and it's not the wet floor itself that's the issue, but it's the sign, because, my cane might run into it first, sure, but if I'm going 100 miles an hour, that cane very often knocks the wet floor sign down. And so, especially the ones that are not like traffic cones, they're just they stand up on two legs instead of like a solid base, right? And I think some of you know what I'm talking about. It's one of those, it'll knock it down almost inevitably, and I have to bend down and pick the thing up every time. So that's more annoying though than anything. I call them the bane of the blind person's existence.
At Robert J. Andrew, do you use public transport?
Good questions, by the way, Robert. I appreciate it. I'm trying to think. Are you the Robert that follows me on Twitter that recently followed me, classicist, about a week or so ago, if I may ask? Great questions. Public transport. Yeah, for me, it depends on the area, again, the city. When I was going to university for grad school, they had a good bus system up there, but it was a very complex route, and I just didn't want to have to screw with learning the whole thing, and I don't know, even with my vision and stuff, it could be really complex to try to figure out what went where, right? And so, some blind people do use the bus if they're comfortable with it. Actually, many do. But also many, myself included, tend to use what's called paratransit, P-A-R-A-T-R-A-N-S-I-T. The paratransit system in each city goes by a slightly different name, but up in my grad school city, Bloomington, it was called BT Access. And so basically it's a special sort of van system, if you will, for people with disabilities, and so I use that just because it was just easier to call on them and have them take me to this place or that place. Now, I do have to usually schedule a day in advance, which can be a little annoying, but, if I have to go somewhere spontaneously, I'll usually just take a cab. And because of the transportation issues, a lot of blind people do choose to live in larger cities because of you have better transportation. In fact, I think it was New York City that was named the most accessible city by, I think it was the National Federation of the Blind, the NFB, which is an organization of blind people for blind people, basically, because of the transportation situation. Most sighted people in New York City who live there don't have their own cars, right? So it's great for us. Excellent. So, great questions so far, by the way. I really appreciate it. We're getting some awesome questions this week.
Robert J. Andrew. No, I have not seen you before tonight. I'm in the UK.
Oh, okay, awesome. Well, welcome. Thank you. Feel free, Robert and others, to follow me. I do this, as I said at the top of the broadcast. I sound like a professional news person, don't I? Maybe I should. Maybe that was my second calling. Classics maybe was, is just another thing. Anyway, yeah, follow me. I do these weekly. 6 o'clock Eastern time here in the U.S., Thursdays. So feel free to follow, feel free to heart this, tell your friends, share it on your social media. Follow me on Twitter, retweet these on Twitter. I talk about blindness stuff on Twitter, but I also talk about my other interests, so feel free to follow me there. I'm at the same username as I am here, as you'd expect. Definitely feel free to follow there.
Robert J. Andrew. How do you get along with cooking?
Cooking, well, for me personally, by the way, for folks who couldn't hear, the question was, how do I get along with cooking? I keep forgetting to repeat them. I don't know how well, when my speech reads that, if people can hear that or not. For me, it's more a personal situation that I'm not a big fan of cooking because I'm usually doing it for one person, and so I just don't bother. I usually just throw stuff in the microwave, stuff like that, just something quick. But there are blind people out there who love it, who use adaptive techniques to be able to cook and who, in fact, do it as a hobby. As a matter of fact, I know a deafblind young lady out in New Orleans who loves to cook and does quite a bit of it, and just really complex stuff, too. But again, we use, sorry about that, guys, we use adaptive techniques, more tactile things, more things with hearing. There's actually a cookbook out there called Cooking Without Looking that is in Braille and in other formats, alternative formats, that gives specially adapted recipes for blind people. I think there's a show out there by the same name. It used to be on this blindness radio station that I listened to from the ACB, the American Council of the Blind, which is another big blindness organization here of blind people here in the States. But now I think it's actually turned into a public television show. It's not really popular, obviously, as you'd expect, but it's a show as well. The blind and visually impaired cooks are on there, showing other blind and visually impaired cooks how to do things, and, of course, describing them auditorily as well. TV is nice, for folks who have partial vision as well. And what else? There was a show on the same radio station for a while called Cooking in the Dark, similar concept, but it was like just a radio show. Again, it just depends on the person.
Armstrong 25. That show was Cooking in the Dark.
Cooking in the Dark, I think was, let's see, I think that was the show's title on ACB Radio. Just Google ACB Radio and you should be able to check it out if you're curious. Check out that station if you're curious. There is I think Cooking in the Dark, I don't know if it's still, or Cooking Without Looking or any of those are still around, although there is now a new cooking show that started on ACB Radio called, strange name, but it's called The Hazelnuts because there is a gal who hosted her last name is Hazelton, and she hosts with another person, and so they call it The Hazelnuts. It's, I think, kind of taken over the other shows now. But again, it very much depends. As with most things with people with vision impairments, it really depends on their individual situation, their own comfort level, and the training or instruction they have received in terms of independent living and all the resources they have access to, right? It's very, very case dependent. But yeah, like I said, for me, I'm not big into cooking. Again, guys, feel free to heart this, share this, all that good stuff.
Robert J. Andrew. I have to go to bed now. Nice chatting with you. See you next week.
You as well. I appreciate it. Yeah, thanks for planning to come back. Definitely follow, and I'll see you next week. Great questions, by the way, and awesome questions from you as well. I can't remember your first name. I'm sorry, but Mr. Armstrong, who just submitted a question as well about GPS. Again, heart this. Follow me. I do other Periscope things as well on here, not just these. More mundane things, But I try to do this particular Periscope session, Blindness Periscope session, every week. Also, by the way, feel free to invite your other Periscope followers as you're watching this, or even if you watch the replay. Speaking of replays, I do put these up on YouTube. I archive these. And so I've been kind of bad about uploading them recently. But I think I have about a couple of months of these up there now. I've been doing this for over 2 months now. So if you just go to my YouTube channel, I am at the same username as I am here. And you can go to that and check out my playlist called Questions About Blindness, the Periscope sessions, and you'll be able to find the archived sessions there from the beginning, pretty much. And soon to be, until the last one I've done today. Hopefully, if I can get my lazy bones up and upload the rest of them. Excuse me. So yeah, check that out. Also, if you're more into me showing you things, like doing more demonstrations of how I use certain technology and things like that, more visual stuff, you can check out my other video podcast that I do on YouTube. Again, it's under another playlist. It's called Through My Eyes. Again, there I demonstrate how I use certain technologies and things like that. And so yeah, definitely check that out. If this kind of lecture format isn't your cup of tea, check out Through My Eyes. Or if you're just curious about that too, check out Through My Eyes and tell me what you think. If you're watching replay, feel free to comment in the comment section on YouTube, or even ask questions. If I don't, get to them, well, obviously I wouldn't get to them here, but I'll try to get to them in upcoming weeks. So yeah. All right, so I'm going to open it up again. Are there any more questions on blindness or vision impairment that you may have? Put them in the comments. My speech software on my phone will read them. And I'll be glad to answer any questions that you have about blindness or vision impairment. Any questions? Again, this show is nothing without you guys, so feel free to ask questions. It's nothing without the questions. So, excuse me. Any more questions on blindness or vision impairment? Any questions about anything I've said so far, or just something completely different, that you may have as a question? We'll go and put them in the comments down here here on Periscope. By the way, I don't know if you can do comments on the web when you're watching this, so if you want to ask me questions, if you can't do that, feel free to just download the Periscope app, and then you can ask me questions there. Or if you follow me on Twitter, or if you want to, you can just tweet me those questions. And, I will answer the questions that I get on Twitter as well. That is definitely another alternative. Or if, for whatever reason you can't comment even on the app, just go ahead and tweet me. So any other questions about blindness or vision impairment? By the way, if I'm like talking, feel free to go and throw in a question. I will get to it. I'll stop what I'm saying and I'll definitely jump right on it, as I have been doing.
Colts notification. Colts. We are live.
Oh, my Colts app gave me a notification. Speaking of my Colts app, and the Colts generally, you probably all heard about Deflategate today and the situation there. And if you followed my Twitter, you probably heard me rather ranting and raving about it. So you can see that's why I am wearing my Colts earrings. And this little shirt here. Ooh, there we are. Okay. See. Got my Colts pride going on. There's actually a game later on this evening, starting at 7. And so I will definitely be checking that out. I'll be having the radio on instead of the TV because, as I said on Twitter earlier, it will be a sighty-free zone. Sighted people-free zone. Other folks are going to be out that are sighted. And so I will be listening to the Colts game on the radio until they return. Because for me, it is obviously much easier for me to follow the action listening to it because there's more description going on than there is on, TV. So when sighted people are not around, I put on the radio to listen to sports. And a lot of blind people, in fact, do that. Again, I sort of follow up on that. A lot of blind folks do listen to the radio rather than watch TV if, radio broadcast is available. And what's great is that a lot of times, if there's not one locally available, you can listen to sports on your iPhone or on the computer, through a radio station that broadcasts online, which is what I do. I listen to a station from Indy on my iPhone, on the TuneIn radio app. By the way, a bit of a tangent, but TuneIn Radio is a great app. Check it out. You can listen to radio stations all around the world. It's awesome. You can get public radio. You can get rock stations, country, whatever. I mean, it's internet radio. It's really great. And I think now you can actually listen to audiobooks, which is sweet. But, yeah, anyway, that's an interesting topic as well. I didn't really have a sort of a filler topic while I was waiting for questions like I usually do. Couldn't really think of one, actually, until just now, when I mentioned sports. Blind people and sports. That's an interesting subject. I've got the Colts shirt going on right now, so why not talk about blind people in sports? But before I get into that, again, if there are any questions about blindness or vision impairment, go ahead and put them in the comments here. I would be definitely willing to answer those. And even while I'm talking, if you have any questions, just throw them in the comments, and I will stop what I'm saying, and I will answer them. No problem with that at all. So, before I jump into the topic, any questions about blindness or vision impairment you want to put in the comments? Any questions? All right. By the way, also, if you guys have any suggestions as to how to improve this Periscope session, feel free to put them in the comments, or again, put them on my YouTube or on Twitter, or however you follow me. That would be awesome. Any suggestions about how I can make this better, more interesting, or whatever, because we need to definitely keep the viewership up. We need to, keep getting more people, so I can continue to do this and be sure that I'm having an impact with it. So, like I said, any suggestions are great. Feel free to share this, as I say, heart it, follow me, all that good stuff. So, excuse me, I'm starting to lose my voice, goodness. Blind people in sports. Yes, we do like sports. Many of us like to watch them or listen to them, either on the radio or TV or whatever, again, depending on our level of vision, our preferences. All kinds of different sports. As I say, a lot of us get a lot of better description on the radio, so a lot of times we like to listen to the radio, especially if we don't have other sighted people around that prefer the TV. Excuse me, as far as playing sports, there aren't really a lot of sports we can play on an equal level with sighted people, unfortunately, with the same rules and everything like that. But we do have adapted sports in certain specialized contexts, like at schools for the blind, for instance. We have adapted track. I was in track for a couple of years at the School for the Blind, where I went to middle school and high school, and what they use are both large print markings on a track, really high contrast as well, like light numbers on a dark background, and really wide lines to keep us in the lines. And for those who can't see at all, we had another specialized track, a straight track, where we would just kind of turn our own bodies around at the end and then, start back again, and that'd be kind of each was a half a lap. And they had the high contrast numbers there too, but they also had little wires you could hold on to and run on the wire. So you could hold on to the wire, and at certain points in the lap, the wire would be marked with some kind of tactile marking that you could feel. So as you're running the wire, holding on to it, running with the wire, kind of holding on to it, you would be able to feel where the different divisions of the lap were located. Now, we did have to wear kind of pretty thick gloves while we were holding onto the wire, because, you'd get wire burn if you weren't wearing something because you're running so quickly. And so that's how we did track things. Now, let's see, what else? I'm not a big, in terms of doing sports, I don't really get into it that much. So, I mean, probably other people would know more about it than I do. I'm just speaking from my own experience. I am definitely not cut out for sports. Again, I did track for 2 years, but it wasn't the best thing I've ever done. So, because like I said, I just don't think I'm built for it. Excuse me. What else? Oh, there are also specialized sports that blind people engage in. The most common one is called is it goal ball or beep ball? Actually, I think it's goal ball. Goal ball, GOAL ball. And it basically, what it uses is a ball, but the ball it rolls along the ground, and it has bells inside it. So blind people can hear when it's coming toward them. And even if you're not totally blind, people with some sight do have to wear a blindfold, basically a sleep shade, so that it puts them on an equal level with people who are totally blind. And certainly if a sighted person is going to play with blind people, they're going to wear a blindfold as well. And no, I've played that on occasion, but again, it's been so long, I'm not really even 100% sure on all the rules anymore. It's just been, like I said, a very long time since we've done that. What else? Excuse me. Again, I'm not a big. The main sport I follow is football, and mainly the Colts because it's my home team. So I'm not really an expert on all aspects of blindness in sports myself, whether it be playing them or watching them or listening to them. But again, just speaking briefly from experience. So, with that in mind, I'm going to open up for questions again. Any questions that you may have on blindness or vision impairment, put them in the comments, and my screen reader will read them aloud to me. So don't worry about that. Go ahead and put those in the comments. If you've ever had any questions about blindness or vision impairment, I'm not shy. I will definitely answer them. So, go and put them in the comments if you have any questions. Any questions? Okay, I'm gonna, any more questions? Alrighty. I'm gonna briefly foray into blindness and gaming generally. No, some stuff other than sports, that is, right? There are a number of sources where you can get both large print and braille playing cards. And so that allows blind people, if everyone's using those cards, to play games along with sighted people. So that kind of levels the playing field if you're all playing with braille or large print cards. There are other braille games out there, games that have been put into braille for blind folks. For instance, bingo. And again, a lot of times because they'll have print on them as well, sighted people can participate with blind people in those kinds of games on an equal footing. There are, as I say, bingo boards that are enlarged, and I think in braille as well. I think even some other board games have been made, have been given braille and large print adaptations. So, yeah, and in terms of gaming on a computer or on a phone, excuse me, unfortunately, most games on a phone, like iOS for instance, are not accessible to the blind. In other words, the speech software that I use on my phone is unable to read what the games, have on the screen for me. It's unable to read it aloud, or for any blind person for that matter. And so, a lot of times we don't have nearly the same equal access to iOS games, for instance, as the sighted do. There are some games that are reasonably accessible or even fully accessible, but again, they're very rare. Trivia Crack is one. It's obviously a trivia game that I like to play, and a lot of blind folks do like to play, and sighted as well. And again, since we have in those situations where games are accessible, iOS games and things, that does put us on an equal footing with sighted people who play those games. So that's pretty awesome. What's another accessible game? There's one called True False. Is it True or False or True False? Anyway, one of the two. Again, it's trivia. With a true or false twist. Now, I don't generally get into gaming much either, whether it be board games or on computers. The one type of game that I do really enjoy is a trivia game, and so that's mainly what I know, right? So, any other games I'm really not really up on. So, let's see what else. I think if you really work to figure it out, some games are accessible on gaming consoles. And again, I have never really messed with that sort of thing, so I'm not really an authority on that particular aspect of gaming. But again, just speaking briefly from what I know, as I said. Any other questions on blindness or vision impairment? I'm going to open it up. Again, if there are any questions at all you have on blindness or vision impairment, go ahead and ask me. I will do my best to answer them. I feel I'm very well connected with the blind community, and of course I am visually impaired myself. And so I'll do my best to answer any questions you may have about blindness. Put them in the comments section, and my speech software on my phone will read them. So yeah, any further questions? So anything that I've said so far that's piqued your interest, or do you have any kind of follow-up question on anyone else's question that they've already asked? or on anything that I've already said. Go and put them in the comments. Any questions about blindness or vision impairment? Again, we got some good questions, but from very few people. So, again, it's great to have that. I appreciate it. But we need more participants. We need to get the numbers up, and we need to have more people at a time. I mean, as I said before, I have the propensity to lecture, so I can really draw out a question if I want to. But again, we definitely need to get the word out about this, so we need to have more questions each week, to fill up more time and make this more productive and frankly more worthwhile. So, again, any other questions that anyone may have on blindness or vision impairment? Even if you don't have a question, just let me know that you're out there. Just put a hi or hello or comment, say something about this broadcast or something like that. Put them in the comments just so I know you're there and actually caring and actually watching and listening. And I appreciate that too. And again, feel free to heart and share and all that good stuff. I don't know if you guys can hear that, but there's a train whistle in the background outside. So, right. You know what? I'm going to take final questions. Any other final questions on blindness or vision impairments? Anything at all before I jump off of here for the nights? Any questions you've been dying to ask about blindness or vision impairments? Put them in the comments. And my speech software on my phone will read them. Okay, any other questions about blindness or vision impairments? Going once? Going twice? All right. Well, guys, if I didn't get your question this time, if I happen to miss it or whatever, I will try to get to it next week. I'll replay this and make sure I got to everyone. Again, being visually impaired, I may not always see them down there, but again, I should have mentioned this earlier, but if I missed your question, and if I do miss them in future when you're on here, feel free to put them in the comments again, and hopefully I'll see it a second time. Again, if not, I'll get to your question the next week. So, all right, again, feel free to look under my YouTube channel, same username as I am here. Look at the playlist entitled Questions About Blindness, the Periscope sessions, and you can check out archived Periscope sessions like this. Again, feel free to ask questions there or comment there. Follow me there. If you're interested in seeing a more visual podcast that I do, video podcast, again, go to my YouTube channel, check out the playlist called Through My Eyes. I don't do them regularly, but I have several about for instance, how I use technology to assist me daily as a blind person. And again, feel free to heart this, share this on your social media, either during the broadcast or after, or during replays. Feel free to follow me for these kinds of periscopes and for others. Also, if you wish, follow me on Twitter. Again, I talk about this kind of thing, but I also talk about my other subjects of interest, including classics, Christianity, space, aviation, language and linguistics, philosophy, all kinds of stuff like that. Basically, if it's in my profile, I tweet about it, my profile description, right? So check that out. And again, thanks to all who, or the few who participated, and thanks to all who've watched. Feel free to come back in the coming weeks, and feel free to contribute questions if you haven't already. Again, this show is nothing without you guys. It's nothing without the questions. That's the whole intent of this. So, all right, guys, I think I'm going to jump off of here, jump on Skype for a little bit, and then watch the Colts game. So I will see you, Lord willing, I shall see you next week, and I hope everyone has a lovely night. And again, thanks for watching, and go Colts!
Stop broadcast.